Well, thank you everyone for joining us at the fifth Ramsgate International and TV and Film Festival. I'm pleased to say that as our guest today, we have Kate. Kate, sorry, you'll have to forgive
Jangra.
my pronunciation of your surname.
Jangra.
Jangra. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Who's here to discuss her documentary, Freedom to Learn. So, Kate, please tell us a bit about yourself and how you became a filmmaker and documentary maker, please.
Well, I started off by being a runner, making cups of tea in Soho for post-production houses. And I didn't go to university. I just started working after art college, and I decided to make my way up, and I always wanted to become a producer so that as a director no one could tell me that I couldn't do something because it wasn't going to be affordable. So I basically started as a runner and then became a production assistant, then became a production manager for many years on commercials and a couple of feature films, and then ended up in TV, weirdly, in Spain. And then I came back and worked with some feature development things, and after that I tried to set up my own ethical production company, which was specifically focused on environmental films or commercials, I guess. I worked with the Green Party, doing one of their political broadcasts, and then I was asked to make a film about a family in Palestine, and that was my first foray into documentary, and I directed that and produced that myself. And after that, I then had children, and life changes. So I looked after my children, and I didn't really work, but I felt a film was in me, and that's when I made my film Babyhood. And then a few years later, another film arrived, and that was Freedom to Learn. So there's a quick history.
Thank you. So in terms of Freedom to Learn, what was the inspiration and what was the aspiration in terms of making the documentary and the film?
Initially, I set out to make a film that allowed people to understand home education a bit more, because there seems to be this idea, and it's amazing because the virus has made that we've all started to really understand things in a different way. But lots of people imagine that home education is sitting at home and doing school at home. And I wanted to make a film that actually said that it's not always that. There are some people that do that, but there are also other people that are more focused on the child's innate ability to learn about the world and be interested in the world, and that we don't necessarily have to pour, these thoughts and knowledge into the empty vessels that are children, which was this Victorian idea of what education was, that children came to the table and they were just a blank page and you filled them up with all these ideas. I kind of was very interested to actually see, like, my eldest son taught himself to read from looking at buses, what was on the side of buses. So that was the initial kind of drive for me. And then, the process of making a film is always, it feels to me that it's other things come up as you make the film, and it kind of takes its own shape. But I think that another driving factor for me was that every parent that I'd sit and chat to in various playgrounds and things would seem to say the same thing to me about what the education system seemed to be doing to their child, because a lot of these parents had taken their children out of school.
Is it your perception, with the global pandemic, at least in the UK, that actually it's shown people the actual benefits of teaching from home or having their children undertake a program of learning at home, or?
Wow, that's a huge question. I think the global pandemic has been incredibly difficult for a lot of people, and I think that it would be wrong to generalize and say that, you know, children have benefited, because I think some children may have, some children haven't. Some parents have been completely stretched, and a lot of it is women who end up doing everything as well as holding down a job. So I don't think that the pandemic has done anything, particularly in households where they don't understand that, in households, not, that's the wrong word, in households where there are incomes that need to be made, and there are schools who are putting pressure on parents to establish a school at home. I think it's been very hard. I think that what the pandemic, at the beginning of it, I felt what was wonderful about it was that the family time became so part of our daily structure. And I think that for me, if anything, having that closeness with your children is of great benefit to the children. I also think it's of great benefit to adults, but we have a lot of adult stress that is also hard to manage. So, you know, as with everything, we have to manage our own stress and our own kind of adult concerns, but children having that time with their parents, I think has been positive. But then again, I'm generalizing, because as we know, not every child, you know, 30% of children in this country are living under the breadline. You know, there are a lot of children that don't have, I think it's 40% of people don't have a secure attachment to their caregivers. And that's just people who are the adults who are bringing up the children. So it's a very involved answer to, you know, it's not as simple. And this is why education is such a great topic, because there is no right answer for everybody. It's different.
Thank you. That's a very informative answer. Thank you. And as you said, it's a massive topic. So I apologise for ambushing you slightly with such an expansive question.
I love talking about it. I could go on. So it's yes. Thank you for the question.
In terms of freedom to learn, how easy or difficult was it to actually get the project off the ground in terms of the pre-production process?
Well, I shot it myself and I edited it myself. I didn't have a financier or a producer. I didn't have any crew. So it was really hard, because it's all about me doing it. There was no one to kind of, apart from my husband's been very helpful in terms of, you know, talking ideas through, but there was no structure, which there's always been in any projects I have done before. And Babyhood, again, I did on my own. And so it's very difficult to set out to make a film, I think, about a subject like this, because, you know, how much you put yourself out there, the concerns I had for my own children, I didn't want to make a film that completely sold them out, because they're very young, and it didn't seem right to me. So I had to be kind of vague about my children within the film, and I therefore had to be slightly vague about myself, because it's not, you know, the government is still kind of trying to get us all into schools, so it's not very easy to be a home educator, because you're already running against the system. And as a female filmmaker, you're already going against the system. I was incredibly lucky that I met some really significant people who I either filmed or who, you know, my local primary school, they let me go in and film in there. It was wonderful. And it was all down to personal connection. So yeah, it was, I've sworn to myself I won't make a film all on my own again. I'll have a team, you know. Next time.
I'm interested in something you just mentioned in terms of you know, being a female filmmaker or documentary maker. Do you I just wondered if you could expand upon that. Whether do you feel that it is inherently more problematic for if if you're of that gender to actually get a project launched, or?
I don't go down the traditional channel, so I wouldn't be able to tell you, like, over the last few years whether that was the case. I mean, what I can say, it's difficult to be a woman in a man's world, and we do still live in a man's world. So yes, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Yeah, I mean, it's a constant. It's a constant. I want to say, what do I want to say? You constantly have to think about, I mean, in my career, for example, I've often not got the jobs that the men have got. So, starting even from running, when they promote the runner to the next jump up, it would consistently, the bloke would get it. And you think, why is that? But it's also what stories are interesting. For me, education, babies, being a woman, these are fascinating stories to me, but they're not to a lot of men. So, and there are, I'm very grateful that my film's being shown in this festival, because it's there's a lot to talk about in it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're grateful to have the opportunity to screen it, and I've certainly been grateful to have the opportunity to watch it. So thank you. In terms of the production process for Freedom to Learn, did it go as expected? Did you have any particular positive or negative experiences throughout the whole production process? How easy to shoot was it?
So I basically took my camera, which is small. I got a little Blackmagic, and I took it with me everywhere that I went with the children, and I'd just get it out and film. The interviews were, set up, and I was able to do that without the kids. And that was fine. I mean, this is the thing. I'd really love to make a film with a crew, because I obviously notice, where I didn't like something, or where I didn't have the time or the materials to give it that kind of gloss that I would have liked to have done. And even, the editing, I did it myself, and that's the second film I've edited. So I'm not I'm not as qualified as I'd like someone to have worked with, because I was very lucky. I worked with a brilliant editor called Brian Tagg on my Palestinian film, and he brought so much to the project that it was, it was really good to work with him. But yeah, it went on, and in fact, I've got a great friend who's an editor who helped me to start cutting it, and he gave me a lot of input, and we made a brilliant film, but it wasn't the film I wanted to make, so I ended up recutting it again. So it's kind of, because you're not working for someone else, you can be as big as you want to, and I think that I appreciate. I've got real, my integrity is intact.
I'm glad you mentioned editing. Thank you, because that leads me nicely on to my next question about whether you could talk us through the editing process. How many hours of footage did you film? Did you have to be really ruthless in terms of cutting it down? Was there anything you wanted to include that you didn't get the opportunity to, or?
Yeah, there was lots. I think, my first cut was like 6 hours long, and I had to work it down from that. I have boxes of tapes. Oh, actually, I don't have tapes because it was all digital. So yes, I've got drives full of footage. Yeah, it was very meditative, my editing. It was, one day a week I could do it, because my husband was able to have the kids for that day. So I'd go and lock myself in my friend's flat and sit and edit. And I just found the bits that I thought were kind of magical, and I kept them in there. And Yeah, it's a lonely pursuit, and I think that I think that great films are made from lots of people having some creative input, and my feeling is that, you know, it's definitely a film that I stand by. However, I would have liked to have had a bit more of a creative input from an editor, for example, or a producer even. So yeah.
And maybe next time, as you said, you will, if you work with a
I
full crew
definitely
and a
will.
full production team. Thank you. My next question: what did you learn from your first film, which was Babyhood, that you took into this project?
That I can do it, that I don't need to rely on anyone else. I can actually do it. I managed to do it before, and Babyhood was really well received in the circles that deal with early years. So I had a confidence from that because it had spoken to so many people. And so I guess that's what I really took. And also lots of the people that I'd interviewed in Babyhood had spoken so much about how schools were failing children, and they were expecting, you know, little boys to sit down before they were able to do so. So yeah, a few things like that.
Thank you. Do you feel that you learnt anything during the? I'm sure you did, through the production process of Freedom to Learn, that you'll take into your next project as well?
Oh yeah, I think with every film you learn more, and you discover little nuances that you'd missed. And I mean, it's kind of it's a creative pursuit, isn't it? Some people draw, some people paint, some people make films. It's wonderful. It's very rewarding. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots I'll take on with me, and not make the same mistakes, I hope.
Thank you. Going into the nature of the documentary itself, and again, so slight spoilers for people who haven't had the opportunity to actually view it by the time they view this interview, but I'm hoping they will have done. In terms of the overall education system, what changes do you feel, having made the documentary, what changes do you feel could be made for, you know, for the benefit of children? You know, clearly there's the idea, you know, that is suggested within Freedom to Learn, that there's, as a lot of things are in capitalism, you know, it's target driven. There's a certain amount of pressure on children at a very young age to fulfill a certain standard. Did you come away with any thoughts on what needed to change, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's one person in the film who says if the privileged have a certain type of schooling for their children, then everybody should have it. And that's my kind of take on it, is that we can't we can't carry on teaching children as if they're all the same, but B, we can't have levels of schooling. We can't have the private schools, we can't have the public school. You know, we have to decide on one way of educating. And there's an interesting campaign that's happening in Scotland at the moment, which is trying to ensure a longer kindergarten period. So immediately, if you have a longer kindergarten period, so you don't have formal schooling until 7, then you've got a child that's had 7 years to be sure of themselves and not to feel like a failure because they didn't pass the test that they were just given at 4. You know, it's ludicrous. So yeah, I mean, I've got lots of ideas. I think that what really has come out for me is emotional intelligence is more important than intellectual. And if we could focus more on understanding why children behave how they behave and helping them to understand why they behave how they behave, then everybody does better in that system. So yeah, I think and also embracing neurodiversity. I think it's really important. We seem to have this idea that, you know, there's a normal child, and I don't believe in the normal child. You know, I think that there's a huge level of differences and strengths to be taken from, you know, all kinds of different people, and if they can be harnessed at a younger age, or, you know, given the confidence that it's okay to be different, then it would be helpful. But yeah, that's a huge question as well, and one I'd love to talk more about, but I'm sure we haven't got time.
Yes, thank you. You know, I'm have to apologize to you and to our audience that you know, we've only got a certain amount of time. So, but yes, a really really interesting topic which you've spoken very eloquently about, and there's a lot more to say. So thank you. And in terms of my next question is, how much do you feel the current system that we have is kind of economically driven? I guess this ties into my previous question, you know, in terms of what we currently have is just a byproduct of economics and capitalism, and also the effect of like emerging new technology, because like, you know, certainly, you know, the fact that children of a very young age now have mobile phones, have social media, be it within school and outside of school, how much do you feel that has impacted upon things?
Yeah, well, I actually did a talk a few years ago about not giving technology to young children. So you're talking to somebody here who is not a great, I don't think all young children should have technology from such a young age. But the beginning of what you were talking about, remind me at the beginning of your question.
How much of our current system is economically driven?
Yeah, it was, so each school obviously gets money for each child. That school then, you know, budgets according to that figure. Now, obviously, they want the child to succeed. If the child doesn't succeed, then schools then actually do quite want to wash their hands of children who aren't succeeding, and the system is not allowing lots of children to succeed, so they're forced into home education with parents that don't actually want to home educate. You know, home educated parents don't get any money for each child that they educate, but a lot of them would say that if the government did offer them that money that the school gets, it would come with rules and certain ways of educating, which a lot of home educators would be very uncomfortable to do. So yeah, it's definitely consumerism, of course it is. And in fact, one of the characters in my film talks quite eloquently about that. It's a travesty, it's all money. You know, it's like the emotional intelligence. It's not, people aren't getting what they need to live a good life. They're getting what they need to potentially go and work in an office and, you know, listen to somebody tell them what to do for the rest of their life and get themselves into debt so that they're not free. That's why the film Freedom to Learn, it is the freedom to be able to live your best life, because you've got to question everything.
As Roger Waters and Pink Floyd might have said, becoming another brick in the wall.
Exactly. I should have stolen that and put it in the film.
Oh, well, feel free to take that. This is such a large topic, as we've touched upon in previous questions. Is this something you would like to follow up upon? Do you know? Would you like to make a follow up or companion piece on the same theme or a similar theme?
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of obvious to me that this is an area that I'm kind of quite thoughtful in. So yes, between Babyhood and Freedom to Learn, I did want to make a film about toddlers and tantrums and things, and how you know, behaviour is perceived by the adults in children's lives. However, I kind of skipped over that and did Freedom to Learn. But yeah, I'm very interested in neurodiversity and in helping people to have more layers into understanding how humans interact, for example, that I feel would have been much more beneficial for me to have known at a younger age. You know, I know a lot more now than I did then, and I'd like to kind of keep making films that might inform a bit
Yes,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel very much the same way. You know, if I looking at things with adult eyes now, there's certainly, I'm sure most people feel that way. There's certainly things you would do in your past with that wisdom and, you know, the different approach. So my last question for you, slightly similar to my previous question. What's next for you? What's your next project? Are you working on something at the moment, if you can talk about it? Or
Well, I'm not really. We've just moved to Ramsgate, which is, you know, a big undertaking moving anywhere. And I still home educate my two children who are 11 and 9 now. So my time is taken up quite a lot with them and their questions about the world. So I'm, yeah, I'm not sure. I've got a couple of small ideas, but yeah, I'm not sure. I was thinking more of a short form, a series of short form films about children, and actually children's voices rather than adults' voices. You know, more of, as my eldest is 11 now, and you know his view of the world is fascinating. So I kind of, you know, it feels like this has got to be, this might come out somewhere. That's what I'm thinking. And yeah, but I'm not sure. So yeah. I
um,
should have thought that one through, but yeah, no, I'll just carry on for the moment, settling into new life, swimming in the sea.
yeah, how long have you been in Ramsgate now, Kate?
Only, only since October, so we've literally just moved.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, nice to have you in the area, and I hope it's been you know, I hope the beauty of the area is you know, as I find it to be quite often, you know, it's kind of inspirational and aspirational, you know.
Oh, it's wonderful. We love it. We love it. We've not looked back once. We absolutely love it. So yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for, I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you very much for being part of the festival, and thank you for your time during this interview. Again, I could have spoken to you for at least another half an hour, but with time has beaten us. Freedom to Learn is screening as part of the Ramsgate International Film and TV Festival this Sunday, the 6th of June at 6 p.m. Tickets are available online at the Ramsgate Digital Cinema. Full details can be found on the website. I'd just like to thank you again.
Saturday, not Sunday.
I'm sorry?
It's Saturday, I think, not Sunday.
Oh, I thought it was screening on the 6th. Sorry.
Well, sorry, you might be right. I thought it was Saturday, but that's okay. I couldn't say for sure.
Okay,
Sorry.
if I've made an error, I apologise. Sorry, but it's screened for those watching. It's either Saturday or Sunday, so please do have a look at the festival website. And I would really recommend the documentary, not just because it's a topic I'm interested in, but I really found it a worthwhile watch. And also, you have a website as well, Kate, don't you, where the both this film and your previous film, Babyhood, can be.
Yeah, it's called Babyhood Film, babyhood-film.com.
Okay. Thank you, Kate, and
Thank you.
thank you for your time. And
Thank you very much for yours too.
And nice to meet you. And I'm sure I'll see you around Ramsgate. And thank you, everyone, for watching.